Hello and welcome to the Stage of Greatness. I'm Danielle Francine, and I have with me today my friend, one of my mentors, and just an amazing man that I've had the pleasure to have in my life and learn from, Nick Breau. Welcome, Nick. So happy to have you. So I've worked with Nick, I've followed Nick, I've had conversations with Nick, been in his energy for the past I think I found you when I moved to Florida, so about 4 years ago.
Well,
Um, I know, right? And I don't even remember how it was that I stumbled upon you. I want to say it was probably something with I was listening to Abraham Hicks a lot at that time, and it was like, a video a morning. What makes sense in my mind now is you probably popped up from our smartphone, smart whatever it was, and I was like, "Oh, Nick, who's that?" Found something that you had put out and just resonated with it.
yeah, it's funny. Most people don't remember how they found their way to me, which I find quite funny. And even I hear a lot of stories of people who buy my book and then they end up not reading it, and then 3 years later they end up getting the impulse to read it. And they pick it up and they read it, then they email me saying, "Oh my God, this is changing my life." So it's interesting how synchronistically at one point you get an impulse to buy something, and then like literally 2 or 3 years later, you finally get the impulse to act on that thing, which is funny.
Right. And I think I had a similar experience too. I started listening to you. I realized I was like, okay, he knows things that I don't know, and I want to know what he knows. So, like Blue, I'm like, okay, let me find out all the things. And then I realized that you had a book. I bought the book. I was like, wow, okay, amazing confirmation.
Yeah.
So tell us if you would like to share, what is it specifically like that you do, Nick? Like what do you call yourself? What have you stepped into as far as what you do on a daily basis?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough question to answer because things change on a daily basis. I change on a daily basis. When people ask me about, what's your story, Nick, or what's your job, Nick, or what do you do? I'm like, I just have fun, right? I just follow my impulse. I do what excites me. And lo and behold, things work out. I've manifested seven figures multiple times. I've got an amazing relationship with an amazing partner with some incredible synchronicities. I love my life. I love teaching other people how magical life can be when you step into who you're meant to be and what you're meant to be doing, and align with your divine connection to source. So how's that for like a very brief summary and recap?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's awesome because if someone were to ask me, like, well, what are the things that you've learned from Nick? That's probably how I would summarize it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm mostly known in the world of law of attraction. So my tagline for a long time has been computer hacker turned people hacker. So, the way I went from, I used to be, analytical computer science guy, spent 10 years in tech, very rational, didn't believe in any of this stuff. And then I remember at one point sitting in my cubicle, realizing that, looking around at the people around me, that most people aren't depressed, but most people aren't really happy. And at that time, I was like, okay, so is that the life that I want? Do I really feel like I came here to spend the next 40 years of my life in a cubicle paying off bills, and that's it? And I had this inner feeling of, life isn't supposed to be this hard. Life is supposed to be easier than this. And when I give talks, I'll ask the audience, how many of you guys can feel that feeling that life is supposed to be easier than this? And virtually everybody puts their hand up because it's true. And that's, our inner beings communicating to us, telling us, yes, life is supposed to be easier than this. So I went on a journey and I started studying everything from Reiki to law of attraction, anything I could get my hands on. And for me, I think the difference between me and a lot of people who study personal development or teach personal development is I've always been very focused on the practical.
Mm.
So it's great to see quotes coming across your Facebook timeline that say stuff like, your power is in the now. And like most people, okay, yeah, I get it. Intellectually, the power is in the now, but what does that mean and how does that change my life? So for me, I realized that I was reading book after book and there wasn't whole lot changing because I was collecting a whole bunch of stuff up in here. But there's a difference between intellectual understanding, integrating the information, and then living it. So for me, the focus has really been on integrating and living the work rather than just collecting head knowledge and then spewing it back out to people.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so that was the biggest shift that I experienced when I found you was, Abraham Hicks and these other teachers give you the knowledge, right? This is what you need to think. This is what you need to write, and the guidelines, but there wasn't implementation in the way that you broke it down.
Yeah.
Right. So I feel like you and I are similar in the way people always tell me, like, oh my God, you explain everything. So what? It finally makes sense. And I'm seeing the results. Like, that's what I experience with you. It's always
Totally.
like, here's your roadmap. Just follow this map. Okay, got it.
Yeah, and this stuff isn't complicated. So like success in reality isn't reserved for people with high IQs. And people who study personal development and spirituality, it's easy to get caught up in all of the things. So people worry about whether their chakras are spinning the right way and whether their third eye is open and if they have the right crystals in their room and if they need to sage all the things and like yeah, that stuff is
So
fun to play
true.
with and explore, but when it comes to creating your reality, none of that matters because what really matters is what's going on in here and in here. And once you understand how those things really work and how to shift those things, now you're empowered to live a really amazing life.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And that's the majority of like what I see too, like in my spiritual tribe. That's all the things. Oh, I just saged the shit out of my house and I sat with this crystal and I'm like, and so what's changing?
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's cut. Okay. Yes.
And it's not a bad thing. Like it's part of the spiritual growth that we all go through. There's different phases that we go through as part of our spiritual journey. And one of those phases is in the realization that it's not about giving our power away to all of these external things, but it's really about what we have going on inside of us. And even on the live call yesterday that I did, I had everybody sit down and slow down and ground and tune into themselves. And there's subtle things that people are practicing and have going on that are impacting their reality that they don't even realize is there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And like those things, right? The sage, the crystals, all of that, just like everything else, I believe anyway, once your emotion is in it and you have the emotion, the thoughts, the way of being, then yes, those things are and they can be very powerful.
Yeah, you can use them as permission slips, right? But again, at the end of the day, it always comes down to belief systems.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So what would you say, and this is totally for my curiosity. So for you, like if you zoomed out and looked at your life as a whole, from where you were when you were still working in your cubicle, your way of being then, your life then, to where you are now, what you do now on a daily basis, how you live, how you breathe, how you feel, what is the major difference? Like what's the major shift in you?
That's yeah, that's a lot of things. I mean, for me, there's a clear separation between what I call my old reality and my new reality. So at one point, I mentioned I was sitting in my cubicle and I started on this journey of seeking out, what it really takes to live a happy life and feel good and it was within the next 6 to 8 months maybe that the company was acquired for over 300 million, so I cashed out pretty good. I ended up leaving my marriage. I ended up moving. So for me, like massive, like it's like my whole life was just thrown into a blender and spit back out. in like a 6 month period, and such a drastic change that it feels like a completely different reality than back then. Now, since then, because I'm always expanding and growing and learning and studying new things, I'm always changing. So the person I am today is a completely different person than I was maybe even yesterday, right? So for me, in the way that I live my life now, I would say the dominant differentiator compared to most of society is that I'm what I would call impulse driven rather than logic driven. So most people, society puts all of the focus on the development of the mind. So school is all mind based, education, it's all about how smart can you get, right? And smarts are great, but there's something that is always going to be smarter than your mind, which is the intelligence of your inner being, right? Your inner being is infinitely intelligent. So as humans, we have two options. One, we can develop our mind and rely on our mind, or second, I can just learn how to relax, feel good, get in the receptive mode for what my inner being has to share, and allow the downloads to come through and to guide me through the reality in the most easy and graceful way possible.
Mhm.
And everybody has access to that, and intuition's a perfect example of that. But because we're so mind dominant, we're disconnected from that. And if you look at animals, I love using the example of like geese who in the wintertime they fly south, and they don't pull an iPhone out of their pocket to look at the calendar to see when it's time to go south, or to look at a GPS or Google Maps to see which direction to go in. They just get an impulse. It's time to go that way, and then they follow it. And as humans, we have the same thing, and it's very powerful. But again, because we're so mind dominant, we suppress that, or we don't listen to it, or we doubt it.
Mm, yes, I love that. Love that. So following your impulses and trusting that, really.
Yeah, and think about how much it simplifies reality. So think about the amount of relief you can feel knowing that you don't need to figure anything out,
Hmm.
right? That all your problems are already solved. All you need to do is relax, get in the receptive mode, and let the guidance come to you,
Yeah.
right? Um, it's just such a different way. I think it's a leading edge way of experiencing reality.
Hmm.
And in my experience, and of course the people who are in my programs, they realize that once you start living in that way and start working in the fears and the blocks to allowing yourself to do that, some really incredible things start to happen in your reality.
Yeah. And so that's what I was going to bring up also is, for the person that has not ever dabbled in law of attraction, that is still in that, smart mindset, like I need to figure it out, I need to create this grand plan to achieve X, Y, and Z, presenting them with, oh, well, just relax,
Yeah,
just allow
it's
the
it's
downloads to come. They're like,
and it's hard to learn that because it's so opposite of what society teaches. And there's a movie on Netflix, a documentary. I think it's called The Big Little Farm or something like that. And it's a documentary where somebody buys this kind of middle-sized farm or small farm. And then there's cattle, there's sheep, there's gardens, there's all these different parts to the farm. And then one thing is broken and he fixes that one thing, but that fix ends up breaking something else. And then he fixes that other thing and then that breaks something else. So the whole movie is him fixing things and then other things breaking. And one point he gets frustrated and he just steps back and he just stops trying to fix everything. And then the next thing you know, all these other cooperative components start resolving themselves and working together, and the whole farm finds this perfect balance where when he doesn't touch it and lets it all go, that perfect balance creates this ecosystem, which is exactly what was needed all along, right?
mm,
So there's examples of it, and a lot of people experience it in different ways where when you stop trying, where you just let go, then exactly what you were looking for or what you needed showed up. And again, it's counterintuitive to the mind
right.
because the conscious mind is attached to the 3D physical reality.
Mhm.
And because it's attached to that reality, it's not aware of our inner being reality and the non-physical reality. So it struggles in getting on board with that other part of us.
Right. Right. I totally agree. And I love the analogy of that movie or the documentary. As you were saying that, like, he fixes this thing and then something else breaks. What came up for me was, okay, when I try and do that, I have this fear come up. And so I work through that. And then that's good. And then this comes up. So it's been in my journey, consistently working through those things and allowing what's coming to come to me, and typically that also brings up something else, right? And I work through that, and then it's my next level, my next level, my next level. So while your life greatly improves and you allow more and more in, you get more and more to work on, but it's consistently elevating you, and you're constantly expanding,
Totally. And
which is
that's really what the whole journey is about, right?
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, hmm, I think this is also a tough question too.
That's okay. Tough questions are way more fun than just easy ones.
Okay, good. It's like, let me ask you the short question that needs this really long answer.
Yeah.
So what would you say is the key to manifestation?
As ironic as it sounds, it's about not trying or not needing manifestation to happen.
Mm.
So for me, when I manifested that tech acquisition, when I went into computer science at a high school, my goal was I want to retire by the age of 30. I want to be part of a startup and I want to hit seven figures before I hit 30. Now, it happened when I was 33. But one of the major things that happened, I would say 3 to 6 months before the acquisition was announced, was I remember sitting in my living room and reflecting on life as I do a lot or used to do a lot back then, and realizing that, you know what, I have a stable job. I'm making about six figures, more money than most of my neighbors. I'll probably have a job, a secure job for the rest of my life. Financially, I'm okay for the rest of my life. You know what? If this seven figure dream or goal doesn't happen, I'm still going to be okay. And it was in that process of, I call it a letting go, that opened up the energy. And lo and behold, it showed up. And if I take that same example with my partner Anik, so we have some crazy synchronicities. My name is Nick, her name is Anik, so we virtually have the same name. We both study spirituality. We do the same type of work. When we met, we were even driving the same type of car, and we even found out before we met, or that before we met, we had left our marriages on the same day. So when we met, again, we were both kind of pretty fresh out of our marriages. Neither one of us was looking for a partner. It just came together in just an easy, magical way. So again, it's like when I look at all of the big things that have entered my life and all of the what you would call big manifestations, they always happened when I was outside of this element of trying.
Mm. Yeah.
And I think what people need to understand and realize is the reason people are trying to manifest is because there's discomfort in the current reality. So everything you want, the reason you want that thing is because of how you believe you feel when you will have it, right?
Right.
So you might want money for the safety or money for the freedom, right?
Mhm.
So once you realize that, and you realize that the path isn't the thing because you're giving your power away to that thing in order to feel good. And once you focus on the feeling good and achieving the emotional state, regardless of whether that thing is present or not, that's when things really start to show up.
Mm. Yes. I love that. And so one of one of the emotions that I've really been sitting with lately, that it feels like it blankets all of the things and takes away, not takes away, but I guess eases the desire for specific things, is love, but more so like self-love. Self-love, loving my body, loving my reality, just like that overflow of love. And it's like, I have everything that I want. And similar to like your realization, I have this job, I have it. Like years ago, right? I'm like, I want to make this amount of money. I want to live in a place like this. I want to experience a work life balance like this. And I think it was Nicole, she had posted in our group, in the collective group, her realization of that. And I'm like, I reflected on that. I'm like, oh my God, I have all of that. Like I manifested that, not even realizing it. So like sitting in that and then, just trying to take that love even deeper. This past couple weeks have been like
Yeah, and I
crazy.
think what a lot of people don't realize is a lot of their drive to manifest, or they're pushing, they're trying, they're efforting in reality, is to compensate for those negative emotions. So people who have a lot of emotions of not good enoughness, they're
Mm,
like, I need that next promotion, or I need to prove myself, or I need to have a six-figure business, or like the striving and the drive is to compensate for the unlovable or the not good enough or whatever they're feeling inside. And the gotcha on that is, once you achieve those six figures that you're looking to achieve to feel good enough, once you get there, you're like, oh, I need seven figures, right? So you can't win at that game, and you'll really only find that satisfaction once you work through what's going on inside of you. And once you work on that feeling of, let's say, not good enough, and it's gone, then that stress and that pressure to achieve the six figures goes away, and
yeah.
then it for some reason manifests way more easily.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. And I feel like same thing with, needing that love and approval from other people. Once you work through all of that within you and you don't have that not worthy, not good enough, and you have that deep, true self love, you're not looking for it. You're not needing it from another. And then when it shows up, it's like, oh, wow. Okay, this is just adding to the love that I feel.
Totally.
And it's never that, oh, I can't let go. You know? Yeah. It's
Absolutely.
powerful. Super powerful. Yes. So, Nick, how can people find you?
Yeah, I'm a little bit all over the place. I've got a YouTube channel, youtube.com/nkbro. I do a free live call, currently doing a free weekly live. I call it collective live broadcast. Right now it's every Tuesdays. We might take a break for the summer. But if you go to live.nickbro.com, you can find details about that. I've got membership community, which is the collective, where you've been hanging out with for the last 3-4 years. That's kind of the funnest thing that we do. Again, live.nickbro.com, I think, is the best place to find info on that. Power Manifesting, the book, is on Amazon. I'm on Instagram. If you just do a search pretty much anywhere, you'll probably find something.
You'll find
Except
Nick
except
anywhere you look.
except OnlyFans. I'm not on OnlyFans yet. I
Yet. I love it.
haven't had that impulse so far.
You never know what the future holds.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so great. Yeah, and so like just to kind of like add on top of all the things that we talked about, the something that I do speak about frequently now that I'm comfortable with is what I went through last year, with my divorce with my husband. And I feel that all of the things that I've learned with you, from you, as far as like on this journey and working through things and cultivating certain emotions and, acting as if I have X, Y, and Z, even though I wasn't in the collective for those few months towards the end, because I just felt like I needed to take the things that I learned, integrate them, right?
Yep.
Without what other people were going through, just being with that within myself. Yeah, it sucked going through it. And compared to the average person that doesn't have these tools, like a few months, I was, a pile of shit on the floor versus a couple years.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, like the shift that I've experienced since, being in your energy, being in your presence, in the facilitator training, the last 4 years, like people that I knew in New Jersey, they're like, this girl is a different person. What? Like who? What? Just, just showing up in a store. Wow. What are you doing?
Totally. Totally.
So thank you for following your inner guidance and sharing all of the things that you do. So anyone that's listening, the free calls that he does on Tuesdays, the collective calls, I've shared those with several of my friends and they're like, "Oh my God, it's amazing." Please do yourself a favor. If it sounds intriguing and exciting, follow that. It's your inner being telling you, go.
Totally. Yeah, and I mean, we all have that. Part of the reason I do this work is because if I can do it, I know anybody can do it. It's just about knowing where to look and what to do with what you find when you go looking on what's going on inside of you. And, yeah, it took me maybe 10 or 20 years to get to where I am now, but that was me figuring it all out on my own. And now that I've already figured it all out, you guys don't have to. I can show you guys the way. You just need to consume the information, but also apply it and do the work, which is why we do the calls that we do, which is that support structure, and why I've trained all these facilitators, which is, you've got the tools too that you can work with people and stuff. So the more people learn this stuff, the more positive ripple effects we have on the planet, and the more it uplifts and empowers people, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking of that before the call, the ripple effects, that you've had since starting this, all all the facilitators that you have, all of the people that they work with, right? The families that are affected by those single people. It's yeah, it's amazing. Amazing.
Totally. So much fun.
Yes. So thank you. And
Awesome.
thanks for
Thank you.
hanging out.
Anytime, you know where to find me.
Yes. And I will see you in a couple hours.
Sounds good. Oh, yeah, we got a collective call today. Awesome.
Yep.
We'll see you there.
Yay.
Bye,
Thank you so
everyone.
much. Bye, guys.
Thank you.